I think that, that kind of hits home when people realize that. Or I mention the smallpox. The very first vaccine ever created sparked smallpox pandemic. Yet they write up, because they control the media, they write up a different story, and people buy it hook, line, and sinker, and to their own demise. And it's time to wake up. Okay.
Yeah, it would be my prayer as well to do that. Let's focus on the media and its relationship here to the 1918 Spanish flu. When you begin to realize what's really happening, it's shocking. First of all, the 50 million alleged people that were killed from the Spanish flu of 1918, where it's very suspicious where even the name of this came from, because it was not long after the Spanish-American War that this thing happened. And so kind of like today, we're calling it the Mexican flu or the swine flu. People don't like those names, but it's interesting where viruses and outbreaks get their names. The David Sencer character, Dr. David Sencer, was Centers for Disease Control official director between I think it's 68, 69, and the 76 and 77. Actually 1976, David Sencer's history is very, very important. He is the man that signed off on the Tuskegee syphilis study to continue it.
Is he the guy in that 60 Minutes clip that is just squirming when they ask him the hard questions, and you could just tell he's lying all over his face? Is he the same man?
I apologize. I'm going to have to look at that new segment, the new 60-minute segment. I've been so swamped I haven't gotten to it yet.
I understand. No, it's all right. Go on.
But if it's Dr. David Sencer, CDC director between 1969 and 76, who was not just responsible for signing off on the Tuskegee syphilis study, and this man was sent via a covert operation. It was really a biological weapons covert operation to dig up the 1918 Spanish flu virus against all outrage by the scientific community, and conscientious doctors and scientists were saying, well, if you dig this thing up and it killed 50 million people, then what's going to assure that it's not going to break out from a lab? Mm-hmm. And now here with H1N1 pandemic, it has. Mm-hmm. The genetic sequences from that virus are contained in this recombinant and pose an additional threat to the circulating flu. So this is David Sencer. Now, David Sencer in 1976 was CDC director still. This was when the Fort Dix military experiment occurred. Nobody's calling it a military experiment. They're calling it a mystery. But the fact of the matter is that all of the soldiers, approximately 200 at Fort Dix, New Jersey, that broke out with this 76 swine flu, they never touched a pig. Mm-hmm. There was no pigs on the military base. They had gone out, some of them, and they had not touched pigs on leave. They came back, and mysteriously they got the same strain that had been extinct for about 2 decades. Mm-hmm. And so there's only one reasonable explanation, is that the military was actually conducting on behalf of the drug industrialists at Fort Dix, New Jersey in 1976, leading to the Merck Pharmaceutical Company's production of the swine flu vaccine of 1976. They did the same thing back in 76 that happened here in April 2009. As soon as the Fort Dix incident occurred, the outbreak occurred, the media blew it out, big time. And that led to the 1976 swine flu vaccination campaign, which was devastating. And then you have to follow David Sencer. The very next year is when the 1977 outbreak happened of what all the experts claim was a laboratory-sourced or refrigerator-sourced outbreak of a related H1N1 virus. So in other words, you vaccinate the people with a bogus vaccine, and the very next year you have this broad outbreak of a similar or related virus that had been extinct for 20 years, and that David Sencer was then taken, most incredibly, from his chief position overseeing the United States federal government Centers for Disease Control. And he was sent to New York City to become the health director for the city of New York. Mm-hmm. Now that, by any one's reasonable understanding, is a demotion.
Yes, I was about to say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the truth was it was not a demotion. Mm-hmm. They took the man who was the most advanced genocidalist and propagandist in the United States federal government, and they sent him to New York City just when HIV/AIDS was breaking out because of the hepatitis B vaccines administered to the gay men in New York City and the blacks in Central Africa. Mm-hmm. They needed a spin doctor, and they chose Dr. Sensor. They put him in charge of all of the concern about the Rockefeller New York City Blood Bank, which became the International Red Cross. And Dr. Sensor went to bat for the blood bank, saying that the blood was pure, that there was no need to be concerned. Mm-hmm. And he delayed the testing of the blood, and that it was sent for 2 years untested, causing AIDS to be transmitted around the world. This is Dr. Sensor. And so today, the Centers for Disease Control leading expert that's published by CDC on this matter of the history of H1N1 is Dr. Sensor. Now, let's bring this most important piece of the puzzle, which deals with the media and the promotion and the propaganda, because there's nothing that you can trust in it anymore. The mainstream media in the Western world is pretty much controlled by Rupert Murdoch and Thomas Glossier. Mm-hmm. If you looked at this weekend's news releases on the declaration of the national emergency by President Obama, the leading newsmakers covering this earliest was Fox News, which is Rupert Murdoch, and Reuters News Service, which is Thomas H. Glossier. Both Glossier and Murdoch are partners with David Rockefeller in Partnership for New York City. That is the world's premier biotechnology trust. It is a drug ring. It runs Big Pharma. It is the heart of the multinational pharmaceutical cartel. So you really begin to see these hideously, grossly conflicting interests between those people that are setting the public's mindset. The basic mass media mind control is occurring by way of these conflicting interests, and subsequently we have the making of money off of humanity's suffering and intoxication. That is the strict definition of genocide. So this is pan-genocide, global genocide.
Mm-hmm. Now, our audience, they're no stranger to conspiracy at all. In fact, that's how this whole radio show, the whole Wake Up Project, came into being, was from a film that is just based on the whole global conspiracy from more of an Islamic perspective. But anyway. So I can't tell you how excited I was to see you on Al Jazeera. I had been sending them emails telling them, this is the biggest story on earth. Why aren't you reporting it? I wrote to Russian TV, Russian Today. They reported it immediately. What's going on? Why are you all sleeping? And then when I saw you on there, I can't tell you just what an incredible relief that was for me to see. And right afterwards, I believe a week after your interview with them, they did another program with two doctors, sort of a pro-vaccine and an anti-vaccine. The anti-vaccine doctor just blew the other one out of the water. I mean, the other one just, he just looked like a fool. I mean, I don't know. He fell all over himself with really weak arguments. It was just so obvious. But the Al Jazeera interview was translated into Arabic. So I was just wondering, could you just give us like a quick rundown of what you may have said on that interview, which probably just blew the minds of millions of people, For us, it's not so new, but I'm just wondering, what did you say to the whole widespread Arabic audience that,
Yeah, well, essentially what I've shared here, I've shared there pretty much. I also shared the fact that these vaccinations, H1N1 and the flu vaccinations, are not tested. They're not safety tested. In fact, when you look, for example, at Rupert Murdoch's mother, Elizabeth, who runs the Royal Victorian Hospital, where the pregnant women were tested with these new vaccines, the tests were based on old flu vaccine studies. And when you then dig up those studies, then you realize it's a complete fraud. Because in science, there's something called the placebo control. And that makes complete sense. When you give a placebo group and compare it to a experimental